Namaste and welcome to the beginner's course on the Fundamentals of Hindu Astrology. The sole purpose of this entire course is going to be to give you a step-by-step, easy to understand, and perhaps the most practical approach in mastering the basics. The entire course is going to pan out for a 6-month period wherein you would be receiving 2 videos a week that would be shared to you privately. There are no hard and fast rules here. You can access all these videos at your leisure, either on a weekend or a weekday. Clarify all your doubts with me as you finish each and every video. Now, what is the prerequisite to this course? Since it's a beginner's course, it's quite obvious there's absolutely no prerequisite here. But if at all I had to add a prerequisite, all that you need in this course is nothing but a pure, childlike desire to learn astrology, to know about astrology, and perhaps be willing to apply it into your day-to-day lives. And as long as you have that, I would literally hold your hands tight and get you to take that one step at a time and take you through this entire journey. Now, there is a possibility for you to come up with this question. Sir, I've been watching so many videos on astrology. I've been reading so many books on astrology. So does the beginner's course hold any value to me or anyone for that matter? My answer to this is an absolute yes. In fact, the only reason this course is being rolled out is just for that purpose. I honestly did not want to come up with this beginner's course for everybody. But throughout these years, while I keep teaching some advanced and subtle predictive techniques to even seasoned astrologers, I found that almost I had to spend half of my time re-educating the basics to them and then making them to understand what I was trying to convey. That's when I realized that there is something that needs to be addressed. And what is it? It is the core rudimentary fundamentals. So technically, the fundamentals need to be strong. And if the fundamentals are weak, it's like constructing a huge tall apartment complex with an extremely weak basement which is ready to fall anytime. So how to get the fundamentals correct? In the beginning, when I started off practicing, learning from some really illustrious teachers, traveling extensively throughout the country, gathering a lot of deep insights in the Shastra, and finally when I sat down to predict, there were certain rules which worked out for some people, and there were certain rules which did not really work out for a whole lot of them. So throughout these years, it's all been about dissecting rule after rule, technique after technique, teachings after teachings, classic after classic, one by one, to each and every client possible, and finally coming into that filtered conclusion on what works and what does not. So what you are being presented with here today is the final elixir of 12 years of rigorous, arduous, but rewarding hard work. So the fundamentals is going to be taught to all of you, not just by copy-pasting books, techniques and classics, but by using this one thread of experience that I have. The experience that I get on a day-to-day basis interacting with clients. Not just interacting with them, but tallying the rules and sorting out their issues. Issues as simple as, when will my son get a job? To issues as complex as, if at all my husband can go for a kidney transplant and will he survive? So I would be using that experience as a thread and interweave that with the classics, with the techniques, and give you the essence of it which is understandable. Speaking about classics, one of the slokas in the classical treatise, Jataka Alangaram, states that astrology is all but a composite of 140,000 slokas. So now you really need to ask yourself, is it possible to literally mug up or memorize all these 140,000 slokas? And let's say, even if you manage to memorize all these slokas, there's a lot of possibility that most of them may not really work out for you, at least considering the context that we apply astrology in our day-to-day life. If you happen to approach any good, competent, ethical astrologer, they will clearly tell you that almost about 60% of what they learned is irrelevant. Irrelevant to the current context, irrelevant to their day-to-day practice. They perhaps apply only about 30% or 40% of what they actually learned. So my job here is not just to teach you things, but to also make sure that I don't end up teaching you irrelevant things. So whatever is going to be taught to you here is purely going to be something which is of absolute relevance and which can be applied on a day-to-day basis. So considering all of this in mind, the course is going to be steady, even, paced out, wherein I need to make sure that each and every person understands all the nitty-gritties step by step, and most importantly, it is delivered to you correctly. For some of you who already know the basics, maybe the first 2 weeks may look like it's a little slow. But still, even if you follow those first 2 weeks, I will try to introduce a lot of simple astrological concepts which you may have probably overlooked on. And suddenly, it would look like a revelation to you, where you would find yourself making predictions bang on without too much of an effort. So we've come to the end of the orientation here, and I'm going to start with the introduction. Now, just before you start with the introduction, I would request you to pause this video, write down what and all you know about astrology as of date, what is your expectation out of this course, and perhaps you can mail me, perhaps you can message me on my WhatsApp, or you can even voice note me on my WhatsApp so that I'm clear about where you come from, what you need, and how best I can go about and support you by educating you. So let's start with the first topic. What is the purpose of astrology? Irrespective of whether you follow astrology or not, there is something that commonly binds us all. And what is that? That is life. Till we are living, there is life. Until there is life, there is something called as a good phase, not so good phase, bad phase, not so bad phase, and sometimes a very good phase or a very bad phase. So all of us go through that. So let's say you know a little bit of astrology, and somebody comes to you when somebody is having a bad phase. The bad phase could be owing to a transit or what we call as a gochara, or perhaps a dasha bhukti, which is a period governed by a ruling graha. I will teach you all of that as we move on. You don't have to worry. So what is your first job as an astrologer? You would look into this chart. You would look into the next upcoming period, see if it's good, and give him that assurance that, sir, there is nothing much to worry about. You will be all right. There is a good period coming ahead. You would be able to sort out all your issues. You would be able to come out of all your difficulties and be happy. So the first purpose of astrology is to give that assurance to somebody, or even to yourself for that matter, not using positive psychological pep-up talks, but by using pure mathematics. Because remember, I used the word gochara, dasha bhukti, which are nothing but mathematical constructions. What else could be the purpose of astrology? I've told you about life, but what is the driver to this life? It is desire. All of us have so many innate desires. Innate, it can be from within you, nobody has influenced you, or from your family, friends, community, society, so many things. You can have so many desires. A desire to become a neurosurgeon, a desire to build a big factory, a desire to pilot an aircraft, a desire to become the chief minister of the state or the prime minister of the country. All of these are desires. But do all these desires get fulfilled? No. There can only be one prime minister for one term. Not everybody can pilot an aircraft. Not everybody can become a neurosurgeon. So, it's not about having a desire, but it's also about having that opportunity. And it's not just about having the opportunity, it is about getting the opportunity at the right time, wherein you enjoy that desire in your lifetime. So, to sum it up, astrology is a beautiful navigational tool to let you know beforehand what are the boundaries you can conquer and what are the boundaries you cannot, or you need to operate within those boundaries. So, if you have access to this beautiful tool now, you are sorted out in terms of what you need to do and what you shouldn't be doing. So let me illustrate this to you with an example. Now, in this example, you don't have to get overwhelmed by the simple astrological jargons that I'm using, because any which ways, all of this is going to be taught to you. So a madam comes to me for a consultation. She tells me her story. She's been through a marriage already, a marriage which has not worked out for her. Again, she is in a relationship with a person, a relationship which has probably lasted for a few years or is lasting for a few years. But somehow the partner is not giving a yes for marriage. So this is getting her worried, a lot of anxiety, all of that. because obviously age is also catching up. So she really wants to know if there is any future in this relationship. I study both their charts, very simple, Makara Lagna, going through a Ketu Mahadasha. In that Ketu Dasha, for her, Shukra Bhukti has started. But for a partner, he's going through a Ketu Bhukti again. And this Ketu Bhukti is just going to get over in a few days. So what would my answer be? Very simple. Ma'am, you don't have to worry. If at all this person needs to marry somebody, the option is very limited and it is going to be you. So he would definitely say a yes for marriage. And immediately on the other end, she told yes. Just now he told a yes for marriage. So do you think this client will forget me? No. In fact, she made me cast the dates for marriage or muhurta for marriage. So this is the way as to how astrology can aid a person or how you can aid somebody using astrology. Again, all this confusion, anxiety pertaining to her marriage, it could have also been sorted out had she approached me a 4 months back or a 3 months back, wherein I could have assured her that, it is just going to be a 4-5 month waiting period and somehow you will get a yes for your marriage. So it is to also avoid that period of anguish, avoid that period of feeling frustrated that nothing is happening in your life. Now, this is not something which can just be applied to this department called as marriage. You can apply it to, thousands of areas in your life. It could be job, it could be promotions in job, it could be ailments, it could be childbirth, marriage, whatever you want. You can apply this rule or you can apply rules in astrology to better your life. And as an astrologer, you grow with these experiences. As I always tell all my clients, and I always tell astrologers also, practicing astrologers, you don't have to do intensive marketing to become a good astrologer. You just need to take one chart at a time and predict and do your job well. And as you keep doing your job well, you would grow as an astrologer. In fact, the entire marketing would be done by clients themselves. So, from where did astrology originate? Especially from where did Hindu astrology or what is secularly being referred to as Vedic astrology originate? Astrology is considered as the eye of the Vedas. So definitely it is perhaps the most integral part of the Vedas. In fact, in Rig Veda, there is a sloka which gives a complete description of the zodiac wheel or the Kalapurusha. But before delving into the Vedas, let us delve into the genesis of astrology even further at a very primitive level as to how it started. It started with this act of someone or a group of people registering events after events happening around them on a day-to-day basis. Example, there is a rise in the water level in the riverbed, there is a storm, the wind is coming from a certain direction, there is a day, there is a night, there is an eclipse. So all this was registered for years and years together and in fact transferred from one generation to another generation, either in the form of a verse or in the form of a saying. In fact, these sayings are still used today in the southern part of India to indicate certain climatic changes or seasonal shifts. And as it evolved, since man's profession in the beginning was completely agriculture, it was about observing the impact of the graha, primarily the sun, moon, later on the revolution and rotation of the other grahas, then later on the nakshatras, their impact on the season, and then in turn their impact on the crops. After a certain stage, there was an introduction of names of days, names of months, names of years. And that is where mundane astrology stopped. The Vedic tradition of astrology was first constructed by sage Agastya. Further on, it was refined and presented by the 18 Maharishis. They were originally written in Sanskrit and later translated into different languages. Apart from that, there are several commentaries by later rishis. Though there are different forms of astrology which is practiced in different parts of the world, traditional Hindu astrology stands out from the rest of them, as the insights that you get in it are far more deeper, systematic, and based on some time-tested principles. Having said that, there are also some very interesting and ingenious systems of astrologies that do gain their popularity from time to time, like you have the KP system by KSK, Jaimini astrology, Lal Kitab, which is predominantly practiced in the northern part of India, Western astrology, Kerala Jyotisha, so on and so forth. So it can be a little confusing at times to which path to follow. Though there are no hard and fast rules, but predominantly most of the astrologers follow the safe path of constructing the Rashi chart, fitting in all the grahas in the Rashi chart, seeing the nakshatra and then using the Dasha, Bhukti, Gochara to come about with the predictions. So this is what is largely referred to as traditional Hindu astrology. As I iterated earlier, what is going to be taught to you is based on the roots of traditional astrology. But as we go ahead, I'm going to bring in tools, techniques, methods to fine-tune your understanding further, as I don't want you to be going through the same difficult journey that I did. So, you're going to be taught the filtered version on what is just aptly required and what is unwanted would be completely omitted. So all that you need to be doing then is just do a copy-paste, as all of them are tried and tested. But that being said, it does not mean that you blindly follow all that I teach. You should definitely reflect on it, use some sound logic behind it, even question me, and then start applying it, as only then you would feel a sense of confidence and satisfaction while predicting. So now, let's move on to the next topic. What are the requirements for studying astrology, or for that matter, studying an astrological chart? The first is the math or Ganitam. You need the calculations that are accurate and precise, as otherwise the study and the predictions can go haywire. Thankfully, as of date, every calculation in astrology has become completely computerized, which means it is both a time saver and a great boon, as you would get accurate calculations and you are ready to start studying. Better still, most of these softwares are actually free of cost. One of them is the Jagannatha Hora, so you can download it and it will give you a complete free access to all possible calculations to aid your study. But still, there could be a little bit of a confusion on the Ayanamsha in terms of what Ayanamsha you need to follow. So this topic on what exactly is meant by a Ayanamsha, what Ayanamsha you need to follow, all of that would be sorted out as the course progresses. So let's say the bit about calculation is sorted out. What next? So you have the software, you've casted the chart, you have everything that you need, be it the Dasha, Bhukti, Gochara. With this information, how do you study and predict? So from now, the foremost thing in astrology is the significators. So what do you mean by the significator? Every object, every place, everything, every act that you see around you has a signifying graha. Or to make it understandable, everything around you has a graha that signifies it or is connected with it. Not just a graha, but even a rashi, nakshatra and a bhava. Let's say you're showing me some object. It could be a pen, book, a glass of water, or perhaps you're showing me your hand or your watch. All of them signify a graha, a bhava, a nakshatra, a rashi. So the job here is to know the significator for each and everything, each and every place, each and every act around you before you start predicting. Now there is no need to memorize them, as all of this usually comes through practice. But I would be teaching you some very simple, easy, logical techniques to easily recognize the significators, and beyond a point it would be as easy and involuntary as getting up in the morning and brushing your teeth. So you would be taught in detail on the graha, rashi, bhava, nakshatra karakatwas, not on a rote or a memorization technique, but through associative or logical learning, so that you can easily remember all of them throughout your lifetime. Okay, so then what else do you need more for predictions? Yes, you need the rules to predict. But finally, apart from the rules, what you actually need is the mindset. You may be studying the chart of someone very close to you, like your father or your mother, or maybe even studying a chart of a person who holds a significant role in the society. But whoever it is, you should give the predictions boldly without hiding the facts. So you should have that boldness to speak the truth, not modify the prediction to falsely satisfy someone or earn their favors. Of course, not everything needs to be shared, as what needs to be shared solely depends on the question a person asks. But still, whenever you study at least your near and dear one's chart, you should have the confidence to look at the horoscope as it is and not the way you like it to be. So the final requirement is boldness and confidence. So we're done with the requirements. Now let's discuss in detail on the course content. As a first step, let me explain to you the journey that you're about to take as a learner. Your situation as a learner is like a young boy in a small village who wants to go to this big city. He has the desire but does not know how to go. In fact, he is afraid of even undertaking this journey as he is thinking of so many things like, what if I lose my way? What if I get robbed? What if I fall into the nearby well? My job as a teacher is to use this light called Jyotisha and take you to the highway. That is the first step, and that is what is the beginner's course in astrology. Once you have finished this course, you've reached the highway. So it would get you to that point where you can predict for yourself, your family, and you can even start practicing as an astrologer. But after you've safely reached the highway, you need to decide what you need to do next. Whether you want to board a bus and go to the city, or perhaps board the rail and go to a different state, or maybe board the plane and go abroad. So that is where the advanced courses in astrology would come in. So at that time, after you finish the course, you will be guided on that. Till that time, you don't need to unnecessarily go here and there in the name of learning something and waste your precious hard-earned money and time. I would like to tell you all something before I take you through the course content. Now, you may have had this opportunity to learn astrology from varied sources. It could be your friends, books, YouTube videos, whatnot. But my request to you is till the time we finish this course, I would request you to completely keep them all aside. And what is the reason for that? I'm not saying they are bad. In fact, some of them may be good. But it may unnecessarily impede your process of learning. As I told you in the beginning, my focus was always in educating already practicing astrologers in the finer nuances of prediction. The biggest challenge I faced there was not in educating them, but in slowly removing a lot of unwanted things they had learned from various sources. Unfortunately, in the world of astrology, there are far more astrologers who have not made it than the astrologers who've made it. But since a bad astrologer has already invested his time, money, resources in the process, he would want to do something at least to earn some quick money. And the sad truth is, many a times, many astrologers who failed as astrologers end up teaching their failed concepts to gullible learners. Most of the times, these gullible learners do not realize all of this owing to their eagerness to learn. It's only after they start practicing they realize what they learned is absolutely incorrect and non-applicable. Now, this is very common in the world of Jyotisha as there is no statutory board to keep a check on all of this. And that is perhaps the prime reason for the common public to at times to have an apprehensive approach towards both astrology and astrologers. So before going ahead, let me tell you all here, there could be so many fancy concepts and teachings, or perhaps magic remedies that may be trending in astrology, but they would not be taught to you. And as we progress in this course, I will tell you some of these concepts and give you a proper validation on why not to consider them and why they are not being taught to you. So throughout the course, all that you need to do is just follow what is being taught to you and nothing else. So now let me give you a preview on the course content or what you're going to learn. As a first step, you would learn the maths. I would start with the Rashi chart, then move into fitting the grahas in the Rashi chart or the zodiac in their specific constellation or nakshatra, and then construe the Navamsha Padashara. Then we would move into the maths of finding the Dasha Bhukti. Now you don't have to take any big effort in the maths as I would be showing you the step and explaining that with examples. You just need to observe and just understand the logic behind it as to how it is constructed, as finally, as I mentioned, all of this is completely computerized as of today. But still, you need to understand how it is construed. Next, we would move into a very important topic, that is the Panchanga. Even some of the leading astrologers today do not know some of the important nitty-gritties of the Panchanga. So you would be taught the Panchanga from the start to the finish. I would be using the regional Panchanga that is based on the Drik-Ganita, which relies more on modern calculation. So once you understand the logic, you can start applying the same concept to the Panchanga specific to your region. Next would be the qualities of each and every Rashi. The 12 boxes that you see are not merely 12 boxes, but finite and perhaps the most definable representation of the universe. So fitted in this, you have the entire galaxy, the grahas, their rotation, the nakshatras. Each Rasi has its own element, like one would signify water, another would signify land. So you would be taught the secrets of the 12 Rashis at a basic level. Post that, we would study the impact of each graha positioned in a particular Rashi. After that, there would be a study on the lordship of each Rashi and their impact as per their placement. Then we would delve into the nakshatra constellations in which the graha is placed and construe their impact. After that, there would be a separate topic construing predictions for retrograde grahas and grahas in parivartane. Then we would move on to Dasha Bhukti and how to judge a Dasha Bhukti, how to judge conjuncts or come up with predictions when there are multiple grahas in a Rashi. So apart from Panchanga, all of this is going to be taught to you. Technically, astrology and astronomy go hand in hand. A complete detail on astronomy may be confusing for a beginner, but in between, I would explain to you certain scientific connections between astrology and astronomy. Now, having said that, the pattern of this course is not that you start and you finish and that's it, you're done. The course is primarily rolled out for all my clients. As of now at least, while I'm recording this video, the only enrolled members are my existing clients. So there are no fixed rules here, which means the travel need not be specific for 6 months, as most of you are easily traveling with me for at least 5 to 6 years. So since we have all the time, I would keep introducing you to new things that would aid your study. The idea is to give you 2 videos a week and you keep watching them one by one and keep clarifying your doubts, and I repeat, only doubts pertaining to the videos. In between, I would also share some example horoscopes and ask you to practice and ask you questions. Finally, I would give you my views on the horoscope and explain them to you. So the agenda is not to just start and finish the course randomly by just sending you content, but to give you that clarity and confidence as slowly and steadily as possible. In the earlier times, astrology was all about remembering all these slokas. So you don't have to take that time to remember these slokas because I have memorized them for you. So my goal is just to present to you that final juice or sutra and just aid you with the logic behind it. So as I keep sharing certain example charts, you would automatically learn the concepts experientially. Now the study of Jyotisha can be classified into different categories. First you have the maths that would be taught, then the predictive astrology that would be covered. Then you have the horary astrology, or what is colloquially referred to as the prasannam. Apart from having a horoscope to predict, like you have a date of birth, time and place and you predict. An example being, someone comes to you for something missing in his or her house. Or let's say in a village, someone would come telling that his livestock, like the cow, is very sick. Will it recover? So for that you can use prasannam, which comes under classical horary shastra. Again, there are many forms of prasannam, like you have a prasannam just using the clock. Then there is a tambula prasannam, which uses betel leaves. Shodi prasannam, which uses cowries to predict. Jamakol prasannam, KP prasannam, where you just need to give a number from 1 to 249 and based on that, the lagna would be cast and you can predict. So you would be introduced to some of them, taught a few of them, and further on, based on your interest, you can take up separate courses for your study. Next, you would be taught on the concept of construing proper muhurtas, or the process of construing the right time to initiate certain samskaras like marriage, going for a job, starting a business, starting studies, etc. So you would be taught how to find that good day or good time to initiate that particular event. Next, I would also be touching on the concept of mundane astrology, which deals with predicting events around the world like rains, earthquakes, storms, or even political or economical events. So with this, we have come to the end of both the orientation and the introduction to the beginner's course in astrology, day 1. Thank you. Namaste.